quarterback Shane Vereen, who's on the injured reserve list, or the temporary injured reserve list, I do not expect anything from the Patriots' run game. So sit on him. Who do you start in his place? Pick one of the Denver running backs. I don't care which one, Monte Ball or Ronnie Hillman. The fact is, they are playing the Eagles, and the book is out on the Eagles. How do you beat them? You control the clock, and you don't turn it over. I think the two running backs for the Broncos are going to get a lot of work. And Peyton Manning's not dumb. He's a smart man. When they get inside the 10-yard line, he likes to run the ball. Less of a chance for turnovers, and he doesn't mind giving the credit to somebody else. He just wants to win. So I expect a ball control offense from Peyton Manning, and I expect those running backs to get a heavy workload. So sit Stephen Ridley and pick up one of the Denver backs, Ronnie Hillman, Monte Ball. To receivers, here's two that you got to sit. Vincent Jackson from the Tampa Bay Bucks and Santonio Holmes from the Jets. Hey, I know you spent high picks on these guys, and Santonio Holmes was your sleeper who's been paying off this year, right? Having a good year? Yeah. He's been having a good year against the Bills, against the Jets. He's on the Jets. Against the Bills, against the Bucks, against the Patriots. But you know what? They're facing the Titans, and the Titans have been playing great football, and nobody's talking about them. Chris Johnson is looking like he's back on form. They're controlling that offense of domination of time of possession. And that defense is very underrated. It's a no-name defense. No superstars. They just go out and get the job done. And I do not like a rookie quarterback to get the ball to Santonio Holmes against a quality team. Like I said, I have not held the Jets in high esteem this year. I thought they'd be picking first overall at the end of this season. If Geno Smith can lead the Jets to a victory over the Titans, I will start giving them some respect. Right now, they faced mediocre talent, and I am not buying or jumping onto that bandwagon. If they win this week against a team that could contend for an AFC wildcard, then, and only then, will they get some props. And then Vincent Jackson, well, he just lost his quarterback, and they're starting Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon looks pretty good. The big upside for him, and the Buccaneers think pretty highly of him, and a lot of people around the league think highly of him. However, he is a rookie, drafted in the third round, who the team deemed not ready. They got him as insurance in case they didn't want to sign Freeman at the end of the year. They had no intention of starting him in Week 3, and they're going against the Cardinals. That means Vincent Jackson is going to be manned up against Patrick Peterson all day long. Third round, rookie quarterback, trying to get the ball to a guy covered by Patrick Peterson. I'm not seeing it. I don't like it. Even if Vincent Jackson surprises us, I can live with sitting him this week because I do not have any faith in that Bucs offense to put up a lot of passing yards on that Cardinal defense. They might be able to run a little bit with Doug Martin, but they are not passing all over him. So who do you start in their place? Well, we talked about the Jags earlier in attacking a Colts' weak defensive secondary. So start Cecil Shorts III, the undervalued and underrated wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is just waiting for Justin Blackmon to come back, take some of the pressure off of him. But he's still a talented guy, and Chad Henne likes to throw to him. So you know what? Pick him up, start him in place. And Antonio Gates, tight end for the Chargers. He's healthy, and Phillip Rivers is hitting him just like they were doing 4 or 5 years ago. Phillip Rivers is looking good. He's hitting receivers in stride. He's getting a little bit of protection. He's having a better year than anybody, including yours truly, thought he would. And Antonio Gates is his main go-to guy on offense. So, if you can squeeze in Gates as a flex player or even as your starting tight end, start him because they're facing a very disappointing Cowboys. And the Cowboys will probably end up winning the division by default because that division is just awful. But they are not a good team, and they are not good at covering the tight end position. I'm giving that one to the Chargers matchup. So start Gates. And that is your Fantasy 5. Sit 'em, start 'em. And I'll give you one more free piece of advice. As we said earlier, Ahmad Bradshaw is injured. That means Trent Richardson will be getting full duties for the Colts. So for all of us that drafted him in the first round, and I'm with you, I drafted him in the first round in a couple of my drafts, we're looking for a big, big week from him. So, those are your fantasy tips for this week. Now, who's going to win in week 4? That is our prediction. So far, I've done pretty well. My overall record is 36-13. So almost 3 times as much of win-to-loss ratio. So here we go. We're going to have some upsets. I did correctly predict the Thursday night game. I had the 49ers over the Rams. The Rams have been incredibly disappointing, and it looks like Jake Long is hurt. That team is just not living up to the promise that they were showing. Darrell Richardson has proved to be a disappointment at running back, and Tavon Austin is just not getting the separation that he did in college. That speed has been pretty much negated by opposing defenses, and he's had a very lackluster impact on this season. Except for his 8 catches in week 1, which only yielded 64 yards, he has not been the game breaker that the Rams envisioned when they drafted him in the first round. But Alec Ogletree has been working out well for him. But the fact is that defense is getting far too much field time for an offense that just can't move the ball. And some of it's not all Richardson's fault. Yeah, the offensive line can be shoddy at times, but they went out and got Jared Cook, who's a very good pass-catching tight end, but he is a horrible run blocker. And that has proved to be an error for the Rams. They can't move the ball on the ground with the loss of Steven Jackson, and I just did not like them in the matchup against the 49ers. Harbaugh, who had never lost back-to-back matchups in the NFL, lose 3 in a row? No, I wasn't seeing it. So 49ers won big on Thursday. And if you doubt my sincerity in that pick, check out my blog on Tumblr. I had all my picks up before that game started, so go and read that. And if you have any upsets that you want to talk about this week or you disagree with my picks, give me a call. The number is 630-534-0779. You can also tweet me at the CSBS. I've got Twitter right in front of me. What a wonderful invention that is. Sure, I waste half my life on it, but you know what? It's fun. And that's what this is all about. Fun in sports. Now, we got the noon games tomorrow coming up. We've got some really good matchups. Got the Ravens at Buffalo. I mentioned earlier, I overvalued Buffalo this year. I thought E.J. Manuel would have a bit more wins, but he's proven to be kind of a mini Cam Newton, putting up some good numbers, but just not getting the victory. And I think C.J. Spiller, who's been probably the most disappointing fantasy player of the year, I think he's due to break out. I think he's going to go crazy on the Ravens tomorrow. However, they're still going to lose. So I got the Ravens over the Bills. We talked about the Cardinals at Tampa Bay facing the Buccaneers. Like I said, 3rd round rookie, first start. I don't like it. I think Carson Palmer is embarrassed by the way he's performed this year. I think that defense is getting fed up. And I think the Cardinals finally get a much-needed victory over a very mediocre Buccaneers team. We've got Steelers and Vikings. Good news for this matchup. One of these teams is going to pick up their first win. The bad news, the other one's going to go 0-4 on the season. And, God, who to pick in this one? This was pretty much a coin flip for me. I went with the Vikings because they've got home field advantage. Although last week they proved that that doesn't mean much. If you're betting on these games, don't take my word on this one. Because, like I said, this was a coin flip. But I'm going with the Vikings. Christian Ponder's out, but the fact is that's not much of a loss. They've got a solid veteran in Matt Castle who, maybe he'll be able to show a little bit more promise than he did in Kansas City. He's never been a great starter, but as a backup, he's shown that he can get the job done. So, with Matt Castle in and Adrian Peterson still running, I like the Vikings to pull it off against a very injured and a very, how shall we say, uninspiring Steelers team. Colts-Jaguars. No upset's going to happen here. Like I said, I think the Jaguars are going to be able to put up some points on that Colts secondary, but let's not overthink it. Colts are a great team on the rise. Jaguars are a bad team on the downslide. Don't overthink this one and don't get cute. Colts are going to win big. And Seahawks at Texans. Man, have the Texans looked bad? I just don't know what it is. Obviously, J.J. Watt's not having the year he had last year, but he's still a great defender. Those linebackers can still flow to the ball, and Brian Cushing is looking good. But the passing game hasn't been really crisp or efficient, and the running game has been solid but unspectacular. And you can tell the frustration of Arian Foster as he's constantly giving up carries to the likes of Ben Tate, who's a solid change of pace back, but is not someone who should be getting 35% of the carries. If the Texans want to win, they need to hand it off to Arian Foster. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, and every other down they have on that game. Get it into his hands. He is your best playmaker. You need to live and die with his production. But the Seahawks right now are the class of the NFL. Them and the Broncos are separating themselves from the pack, and I just don't see how the Texans, playing the way they've played, are going to beat a Seahawks team that is that dominant. The one good thing for the Texans is that they are in Houston. If they were in Seattle, I would say no chance, and I would say take the over on that one and give up any points you have to because the Seahawks would crush them. In Houston, maybe our Russell Wilson gets rattled. Maybe the Texans pull out a stunner. But my money's on the Seahawks. Bengals and Browns, again, don't overthink it. Bengals are a great team. They struggled a little bit early on, but they seem to be hitting their stride now. Giovanni Bernard is starting to distance himself from Jarvis Green-Ellis, who should be carrying that ball for that offense. And the Browns, let's face it, they faced a bad team last year who was unprepared for Brian Hoyer. And Brian Hoyer, even though he threw the 3 touchdowns, still threw 3 interceptions. He's facing a better defense. That team's facing a better offense and a better team. And I don't care that they're in Cleveland. Bengals are going to win this one. Browns go back to their losing ways. We talked about it earlier, the Bears-Lions, and what could be the matchup of the week. In Detroit, again, another coin flip. The Lions have all the talent in the world and have everything they need to beat the Bears and even to win this division. However, they play undisciplined football, and they constantly shoot themselves in their foot. How can you ever bet on a team that can't get out of its own way? And the Bears, undefeated thus far with impressive wins over Cincinnati and come-from-behind wins against both the Vikings and Cincinnati, and with that fourth quarter drive against the Steelers last week, they look to be playing really well and getting better each and every week. I like the Bears to win this one just because lack of mistakes and a progression of improving as the season goes on. Lions, it's just a matter of time before they make some sort of mistake that costs them 15 yards, calls back a touchdown, something, just to get in their own way. Now, we've got an injured Peanut Tillman for the Bears, as we talked about. Could be a huge fantasy day. And it would not surprise me at all if the Lions pulled this one out. But they are without their second receiver, Nate Burleson, who broke his arm in a one-man car accident in an attempt to save his pizza. Yeah, that's right. If you haven't heard this story, Nate Burleson had a pizza. He was driving home. He was driving, slows down, box starts to slide off the seat. He reaches over to grab it while he goes to save his pizza, swerves off the road, goes over the median, boom, one-man car crash. Luckily, no one was seriously hurt, but he broke his arm in 2 places, and he is out, which really hurts the offensive balance for the Lions. Hey, you know what? I never want to see a player get injured, but this isn't career-threatening, and at least he wasn't suspended for trying to cover up doping like Von Miller or for any other reason. So you know what? He'll be back. Lions will be okay, but facing a good team in Chicago this week, I like the Bears. Jets-Titans. Already talked about it earlier. Jets, I am not convinced, but if they beat the Titans this week, I will start giving them some more respect. But until then, I like the Titans in Tennessee to take out the Jets. Redskins-Raiders. I had originally picked the Raiders to beat the Redskins. I like the Raiders at home, and the fact is Terrell Pryor has been better than advertised, and the Redskins' defense is Hall of Fame awful. However, in late-breaking news, the Raiders say that Terrell Pryor, due to concussion symptoms, is unlikely to start this week. But you know what? Matt Flynn has shown himself to be a very capable and very good backup in this league. I'm still going with the Raiders. Yes, it might be an underdog, and yes, it might be an upset, but I have seen nothing from the Redskins to justify picking them over any team that appears to be halfway decent. If you disagree with me, send me a tweet at the CSBS or give me a call, 630-534-0779. I want to get some of those afternoon games. Eagles at Broncos. Should be fun. Could be a shootout, but we were talking earlier about how the Broncos are going to try and control that clock because that's what the Chargers have shown is effective against that Eagles defense. Control the ball. And that defense is not stopping Peyton Manning. I would be surprised if the Broncos punted once in that game. So look for a big offense.